Hello Toy Collector fans, Universal Toy Collector here and welcome to the channel. And welcome to another episode of My Collecting Life, the weekly series where I get to chat with you, members of the toy collecting community, about your own personal collections. Finding out what got you into collecting in the first place and what gives you that toy collecting buzz. Alrighty then, so who is the guest on this week's episode, I hear you all ask? Well, why don't we all find out? Sit yourselves down, put your feet up, make yourselves comfortable, and let's take a look at some of his collection in a musical montage. Okie dokie then, what an absolutely fantastic collection, and I'm loving the way it's displayed. But apparently there have been changes. So let's find out about those changes. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome to the channel for the first time, RetroOzGamer. Hello, sir. How are you?
Good, Stu. How are you?
I'm not too bad, mate. Not too bad. Thank you very much. So I'm really interested in hearing about the changes that you've made to your collection room and your collecting habits and stuff like that. But you're saying in the green room, you know a little bit about the series. So I've got 10 questions for you, all about you and your collection. And run time roughly about an hour. If we go over, it's okay. It's not an issue. So if you're ready, sir, we'll crack on with the first question.
Let's get on, mate. It's a pleasure to be on. I love the series. I love the channel.
Oh, thank you very much, mate. You are too kind, and I'll slip you some money a bit later. Much appreciated. Thank you very much. Right. Okay. Question number one. What toy lines were you into as a kid, and what memories do you have of those toy lines?
Yeah, look, I was quite fortunate because my parents were very busy people that I think they found that buying toys and letting me watch TV would keep me preoccupied. They had restaurants, and they went around a lot. But I remember I have vivid memories of Dad bringing toys home. Things like Toxic Crusaders, He-Man, the WWF Hasbro.
Yeah.
Ring Raiders was a big one. I think Scott Crusher's into Ring Raiders as well, because me and him found a mutual love there for a toy.
Awesome.
Transformers was huge. The G1, the original Transformer toys.
Yeah.
That evolved into things like Mighty Max, Crash Test Dummies. I had a lot of love for things that weren't a big toy range. Like, I just really remember the Demolition Man. I mean, you can see the pinball machine. I love the Demo Man movie. The toy range was quite small. The Terminator toy range, the Robin Hood toy range.
Yeah.
Really used to love the Robocop one with the gunpowder little mechanisms that they had in them. And
Okay.
and a toy range that I really have a vivid memory of, that I didn't actually own as a kid, but my cousin did, who was he's born in 1979, so what's that? He's about 5 years older than me. It was Mask. Mask was huge.
Okay. Yeah.
Even though I personally didn't have it, it was an extremely vivid memory of me going to his house, and being Italians, we used to be there every weekend, pretty much having lunches and dinners.
Yeah.
Mask was just a huge memory for me, and I think it was probably because it was the first toy. It transformed in a way, not like a Transformer did, but it was really, the innovation behind that was huge. And those were the toys that I was always playing with. But like a lot of the other boys that I do a lot of stuff with on YouTube, probably the biggest toy range for me was Ninja Turtles, and Dino Riders, which I don't know how big Dino Riders is in the UK, or was in the UK. But Dino Riders was a big part, along with Ninja Turtles. Vivid memories for me was, having action toys with guns and dinosaurs. I mean, as a
You
kid,
can't go wrong with that, can you? And it's funny you say about Dino Riders. I mean, I remember them as a kid, but I never really got into them, so I wasn't too sure how big that toy line was. And I've seen little bits. I'm still it's the thing is with me, if I didn't collect it as a kid, or have it in my own, toy collection or whatever, I don't have any sort of like hold to it, or attachment to it. Do you know what I mean? So I have seen like different bits and bobs of Dino Riders, but I'm not massively into it. Turtles, on the other hand, I know it's a massive toy line, and people like Scott Crusher himself, got a load of turtles, and Dean, who I spoke to the other week, again, he's got a massive collection of turtles. So what was it with the turtles then for you? Was it the cartoon that inspired you to get the figures? The action figures?
I think it was definitely the cartoons first, and the escapism that gave of, I think when they created that show, the fact that they were Teenage Ninja Mutant and Turtles was a cocaine for this escapism of, like, how do we get, I think Scott uses the analogy often, is how do we get the money off the parents to because it is a business at the end of the day. But it was the colors, it was a comical, it was short, and then the toys was pretty accurate to the show. And they had so many accessories, probably too many accessories, and so many variants of it, that it just, and even as a kid, I use this example often now. There are a lot of toys that you hold and grab and look at and, touch, feel, smell, whatever it is, that I tend to call them time machines, because there's a sense of nostalgia. Nostalgia is a powerful thing, right? So
absolutely.
There are times where you hold a toy, and as weird as this sounds, for that millisecond, you get transported back to that moment in time that you held it as a child. And you distinctly remember it in a sense where you kind of have an out-of-body experience. That's my take on it. Probably a bit deep at 10 o'clock at night here in Australia. But, nostalgia is so powerful. And I think it's something that, in a world like today, where there's so much negativity and violence and stuff, I think the more nostalgia we can get out there, the better. And seeing this hobby kind of grow, with people like us who are 40, 50 years old, that are bringing this to life and showing our kids and their friends, because I've got a lot of friends that never toy collectors or never even had these type of toys, but their kids come over because they're friends with my daughter. So the parents walk in and they've never seen anything like it. Now they're 40 and 50 years old, so it's kind of reaching everybody now. And I think with what's going on in the world, I think nostalgia, having that Back to the Future, transporting thing is just so powerful. And even to this day, there are certain toys that, I've got, and we'll get into that after, but that I've kept because looking at them, just the memory is too strong. And as stupid as it sounds, like it's a plastic toy that was designed to, make money. The connection that it's been created with that is extremely deep and powerful. And I was very selective, as you said, that, I only really collected originally toys that I had as a kid. A lot of them were the ones I had as a kid. But if I was filling holes in my collection, I was only buying things that I had or touched or felt as a child, During the whole COVID period, because I was a bit of a retro gamer collector, I transitioned to more toys, and I was filling holes. And I have a bit of a addictive personality where if I start something, I'm just all in. If I'm all in, it's real bad, right? My wife hates it. But and then I started buying a lot of toys that I never had as a kid, and the influence was, and it's not a bad thing, but there was a lot of toys that I've seen on your channel, or Luke Reynolds, or Scott Crushers, or the boys from Keep On Collecting, and stuff that like I never had Star Wars. As much as I love the movies growing up, I just didn't. I think the timing wasn't right for me. I just never owned Star Wars toys. But during COVID, I bought the suitcase, the vintage suitcase that had all the toys in them.
Oh wow!
And then the one that was the Empire Strikes Back suitcase and had all the figures in them. And they were minty, and I paid stupid money for them. But I never had them as a kid. So it started, transitioning that way. But the ones that were predominantly, I know we skewed a little bit, but the ones that predominantly, to answer your question, were the ones I rattled off. Your Toxics, your He-Mans, your Ring Raiders. WWF Hasbro was huge for me because I loved wrestling as a kid. And it was just those figures were so good and just so detailed and so accurate that it really felt like you were in control of those characters. Transformers was a big one as well. Like, I just love the cartoon. I love the voices, the design of the cartoon, the design of the toys. I think you've mentioned it in the past. The toys are really, really, accurate. But yeah, that's pretty much the type of stuff that I've collected and started collecting.
Awesome. Quite a wide range there. I just want to go back quickly because you said something about your children's friends come over and stuff like that. How much of an influence do you think, say, you are and we are as a toy community? Because we know now that in today's society, children don't really play with toys. They don't play with action figures like we used to as kids. How much of an influence do you think we can be into saying, look, this is what we collected as a kid, and this is, because I mean, for me personally, I think playtime is important for kids, using your imagination and all that sort of stuff. How much of an influence do you think we really are, or do you think it's just, in the end, it's going to go by the wayside?
No, Stu, look, I think that's a really good question. It's an excellent question. I think from my perspective and being a parent, I turned 40 yesterday, and I've only been a parent for nine years. My daughter's 9, my son's turning 6 next week. Kids don't have imaginations like we do. Unfortunately, they're on far too many screens, more than what we had. And our screens, even if we had screens, we're a different type of screen. They were a CRT screen. We were doing different type of gaming. Gaming back then wasn't an open world Minecraft that was driving kids crazy. Ours was, side-scrolling games. So things were much simpler when we were kids. And I don't think any of it had toxicity like it does today. Now, I think the influence, depending on how you engage with the kids with that stuff, comes down to the individual. But I think as a community, it's huge because I've seen it with my own eyes. I mean, like I said, some of my daughter's friends would come over and they're just gobsmacked when they walk into the toy room. and they literally saw these toys, and there's just so much color, right? Like neon color, and the level of detail, because like everyone says, a lot of toys these days, the quality is not great. And they're blown away by, like, oh, look at that, and Toxic Avengers, and then look at He-Man, and look at Mighty Max. Oh, what are those? And then I show them Polly Pocket, because my sister had those, and they're blown away. And that to me tells me two things. One, that when they don't have the screen and they can focus on one thing, it does appeal to them.
Yeah.
If the toys which appeal to us, right, are still appealing today, but they don't make toys like they used to, right?
No.
They're not colored like they used to. They're not designed like they used to. They're not drawn like they used to. But the interesting part is, like, for instance, one of the girls came over and her father came over, and he's not a toy collector, was never big on toy collecting, right? He walked into that room and was blown away to the point that now he goes to toy fairs.
Wow.
He only buys, like,
things
that you remember. Like, he was a big Star Wars fan, so he bought a couple Star Wars figures.
Yeah.
And he bought this, and he buys a comic, and he's now drawn into living that childhood again. Every time you go to his house, his shelf, kind of like you behind there, is just getting fuller and fuller of, like, retro books and comics.
Yeah.
And that's someone that had no.
So who's to say where he will be in like a year, 2 years time? I mean, he might go deeper, and his collection might expand and and grow.
Yeah, and look, and that happened to me. I mean, I was a collector already, but I wouldn't say I was a collector. I had a lot of toys, but I wasn't, I think when you're vividly going to toy fairs and going to shops and going hunting, then you're a collector. I wasn't doing any of that. It was just stuff I had, and it was stuff I had on, a lot of it was in tubs, and I didn't have the space at the time because my wife's grandmother lived with us, and she lived till she was 102.
Wow.
So that room was preoccupied for a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And then when she passed away, we decided to turn into that room, a bit of a space for me to pull everything out of tubs and start, enjoying it again, because it had been locked away for
a long time.
15, 20 years. And I think the influence is big, because even now going to these toy fairs, and I'm sure the boys will tell you, as well here in Australia anyway, we see more kids. We see more collectors bringing their kids, and those kids collecting. My friend Dave, his two kids are 10 and 8, and they collect vintage stuff that they've seen at the toy fairs and bought with their own money. Influenced by the fact that the father loves Ninja Turtles and stuff. The kids want to buy. They see dad with the Donatello, they want a Donatello, right? And he watches the animation with them, and he's showing them all these old retro movies. So I think the influence is huge because of the fact that it's such a colorful hobby, and there's so much creativity back then compared to now. And I think what's really brainwashing the community these days is the fact that when the kids go to school, they're on iPads. To do the homework, they're on iPads. To play video games, they're on iPads. Absolutely. And the video games they are playing are just really deep and difficult. And, like, it gets to a point where my kids are getting aggressive on these games, getting frustrated. And then I tried to get them, as you can see, I'm obviously into pinballs, but
we'll get to that in a bit for sure.
The kids really, I introduced pinball to them, and I've noticed the screen time has heavily dropped off because of the interaction with pinball. And the pinball is another thing, like you were saying, have always tried to influence and get the younger crowd into it, because it was a hobby that was dying, especially in the late 90s, early 2000s. But if you invest the time to spend with the kids, and the kids are doing it, they enjoy it, right? But you've got to show it to them, right? You've got.
Do you think that's half the problem? Do you think that's half the problem this day and age? People, because listen, I understand people have lives, they're busy, they've got a lot of work commitments going on, because you get pressured at work. Do you think that with all these outside pressures, families or parents, I'm just assuming here, aren't spending maybe as much time with their kids physically playing like action
100%.
figures or board games and stuff like that?
100%. Like, I pull out vintage board games. I love board games, and they're old board games, and the kids love them. Look, and I think a lot of it has to do with that. And that's unfortunately life is a lot more complicated and a lot more busier than it was in the 80s and 90s,
Yeah.
and, there's far more. A lot of parents now sit on the couch. I mean, I'm a culprit of it. We'll sit on the couch and we'll stroll Facebook and Instagram while the kids are trying to get your attention.
Yeah.
Because you've had a hard day at work and you just want to sit on the couch. But I mean, I always say this and put into perspective this way. There's a lot of kids channels on YouTube. I don't know if you know, Ryan is a little boy that's had one of the biggest toy channels on YouTube for over 10 years. So
Oh, wow.
he basically was just opening toys, like current
Yeah.
toys, not vintage stuff.
Yeah.
And it's become so big. And what was happening was parents were like jumping on YouTube and showing their kids Ryan, and kids nowadays watch other kids playing with toys or watch other kids playing video games, right? And the parents show them that, right?
Yeah.
And that's intoxicating. The kids love that. Now, if more parents knew about channels like Scott Crushers or Luke Reynolds or yourself, and they were showing the kids that stuff, I
Yeah.
think that would be a game changer. But I think, unfortunately, a lot of adults don't even know that these type of channels exist. So only the community does, right?
Yeah.
And I think this is where the shift probably needs to happen, is trying to appeal or just trying to get it out there to these people that don't collect, right? But if especially the way Scott Crusher presents his episodes, right? For example,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's colourful, it's short, it's
Yeah.
to the point. Scott's really appealing on camera. He's got a soothful voice. The kids would probably watch that as opposed to watching some numpty play Minecraft for an hour, right? And then all of a sudden, that child now is going, "Mum, let's go toy hunting. Mum, what's this vintage toy? Why have you never told me?" Or, "Dad, why have you never told me about these vintage Ninja Turtle toys?"
Yeah.
So I think as good as all these channels are, and everyone's got a fantastic channel, right? All these toy channels. If we could somehow get these channels out to the more generic kids that are on YouTube and introducing them, I think that would be a massive domino effect. And I think it will inspire a new
Don't you
generation.
think that's down to YouTube in itself? Because they don't really sort of like help promote new channels these days, do they? So that, they need to probably be, okay, let's aim these. I mean, I know on my channel I've got the I mean, we're going way off topic here, but never mind. I mean, I've got the warning saying, it's for it's for
swearing,
adult collectors sort of thing and stuff like that. And I don't swear a lot like I used to when I first started, but there is adult themes, there is adult humor. Do you think that YouTube should probably do more to present certain channels to younger children?
Yeah, look, I mean, how does YouTube look at toy collecting and think, oh, maybe we should appeal this vintage toy collecting? Because I think the problem is they look at the word vintage and they go, okay, well, that wouldn't appeal to young kids of today's generation because why would they care, right? But at the end of the day, it is a toy channel, right?
Yeah.
And maybe they need new subcategories that you put your YouTube channel as a toy channel, that then when Ryan's toy channel, which is modern toys, or Blippi, or all these current stuff, that you would pop up organically. Maybe they need to just do, allow channels to kind of be the little shark that feeds off the big shark. Because, mate, there are some channels out there that are showing stupid shit. Like, I'm talking kids making stupid sounds, farting, playing with stupid toys, and they're getting a million views, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just the 5-year-old the mum's given the phone to. If we can somehow imagine those kids, all these kids, 5 to 8 years old, all of a sudden coming across, Luke Reynolds' channel, and look, there's a lot of talking and a lot of our stuff, with what everyone does, but there's also a lot of toy showing as well, or maybe just everyone creates a channel that has room tours, toy room tours, right? And that becomes a channel in itself, and everyone drops into this pool of room tours, because room tours are always a hit. They'll always get far more. They'll get thousands of views versus a chin wag that me and you are having that is only going to get 300 views, right? That's just nature of the beast. No one's got to spend an hour. But, for us adults, we'll listen to you in the background. Like, I'll put you on the background and listen to, like, you and Dean the other day in the car.
Yeah.
I can't see your beautiful faces, but I can hear you. So, you know, I think a lot of it has to just do with, yes, that. And I think somehow just tapping into that market. I don't know how yet. I've been thinking about it a lot. And I think, you know, if it would just make it would just make it more interesting. Just getting.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Probably make it harder to find toys in the future for people like Scott and everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because then more people will be jumping on the bandwagon.
I'm flooding this 8-year-old for a Ninja Turtle toy.
Yeah. I mean, we've gone well off topic, but who cares? It's all good. Just briefly, what was your favorite toy line and why?
Look, definitely Ninja Turtles, and like I said, I think that has to be the way it presented, the colors, the accessories, all the different variants. Because, you know, a lot of those toys or toy ranges back then, you couldn't change them to be something else or a different character. It wasn't like Barbie. That Barbie you could dress up and, you know, until Action Man came along in the 90s. But, you know, with the good thing with the Turtles is that, okay, I've got Donatello, he's my favorite. But then there's Party Donatello, and then there's Monster Donatello. And then there's, you know, so it was so many options. And the colors. And I think, you know, it was the same reason why I love Transformers. You know, you can have the car, or you can have the man. You can have the truck, or you can have the man. But definitely, I'd have to say the way the Turtles, the TV show, you know, I hear the intro today, I can visualize it, you know, cell by cell, and it just has a power over me that to this day, it doesn't matter what I'm doing, even at 40 years old, I'll still sit down and watch it.
It's incredible how a franchise can have that kind of hold over someone so many years later.
Franchise about Turtles.
Yeah.
Like you can understand, you can understand Transformers and wrestling and He-Man, you know, but Turtles was such a, and they, you know, that's one of the reasons why they got mocked so much when they tried to pitch the idea, because like, oh, Turtles that were ninjas.
Huge. It turned out huge. It's a massive toy line. It's a massive franchise. You know, it scares the living daylights out of me because it's one toy line that I wouldn't dare dip into because it's just so much. I wouldn't know where to start. I mean, obviously, you get the 4 main characters first, but you've got so many different toy lines that are doing those characters. You know,
it is a rabbit hole that it probably became an obsession because I had a lot of loose stuff.
Yeah.
And then I went, no, I want more sealed stuff. And then I went down this rabbit hole of like, anytime I saw a sealed one, do I have it? No, I don't. Buy it.
Wow.
And I nearly had a complete sealed Ninja Turtle collection, apart from the top 5 rare ones. And you know, and the only problem with sealed mocks is they take up so much space, right?
Yeah.
You know, so, and again, my obsessive personality just was like, I want them all. I'm like the Thanos of toy collecting, you know, just I want everything, right? I want all the rings.
I like that.
But yeah, look, definitely Ninja Turtles.
Awesome.
Yeah.
When did you stop playing with your toys and become a collector?
Look, this is an interesting one because, like I said before, I never really considered myself a collector because, for me, when you're collecting, it's because you're going out there and toy hunting and toy shopping and retro gaming. You know, I always had them and I never sold them. And they lived in tubs. As you get older, you start dating and you start doing burnouts instead of playing with toys.
Yeah.
I distinctly remember a period, I think it was on my 16th birthday, that I actually took some Ninja Turtle toys and the van off my desk and put into a tub because I made room for some PC games that I got for my birthday.
Okay.
And it kind of is a bit of reminiscent of when Andy in Toy Story, you know, he grows up and he puts the toys in the attic.
Yeah.
You know, and it kind of is a bit of a tearjerker because I think everyone at one point did that.
Has been through
that,
yeah.
You regret it at some point as a toy collector, you know. And then, you know, everything just for me sat in tubs up until about 2015 when I had stuff going on, and I think, you know, me dealing with that stuff was, you know, just deep diving back into the old days, because when you've got stuff going on currently, you're like, oh, I love the good old days. You know, when you love the good old days, what do you start doing? You start deep diving in everything that you did or had, and then everything was in tubs, and So, I'd say I got back into collecting in 2015 because I pulled out all these tubs. Like I had 20, 30 tubs of stuff in my mum's house and storerooms and storage lockers. And I was like, and then you start pulling these out. And then during COVID, especially, many years later, you start seeing all these toy channels. And I'm like, oh, there's people that still, you can buy a lot of this stuff. So 2019, 2020, I really hit the ground and filled a lot of the holes. Became a bit of an addict with that. But then it got to a point where I was just buying for the sake of buying, right? Just filling shelves. But look, I reckon when I was 16, so that's 95, 96 was probably, I think it was 96 actually. I was watching a lot of films, playing a lot of PC video games or big box video games, PC games as we call them here in Australia. So I'd say it was around then, 96. And then I think, again, I never really considered myself a collector because I had everything already. But I started buying probably again around 2015. And then really buying in 2019 when, end of 2019, early 20 when COVID hit. Because it's so easy, right? We couldn't go, especially where I'm in Perth. So for those that are watching, Perth's the most isolated city in the world in Australia. We're on the west coast. And when we had COVID lockdown, we were the most locked down city in the world. You couldn't get into the state. You couldn't leave the state. And that had its pros, but it had a lot of negatives. It was a very lonely time. And even though obviously we had a family of 4, we were doing a lot of Zooming, there was a lot of YouTubing. And it was just so easy, right? With eBay, you just buy. Even though I said I'd never do it, because for me, I think everything had to have a story. And I've said this before on Scott's channel, and I like the idea of a journey of like, I went on a road trip and I found this on a shelf in a toy store, as opposed to I need that figure, I'll just buy it off eBay.
No, I get that. I get that.
So for me, I think that's an important part of the journey it was. And being so isolated, that is a tough journey because we don't have many stores here. There's probably 2 or 3 stores, if that. There's a lot of gaming stores, like retro gaming stores, but toy stores, there's 2 or 3.
Let's talk about your gaming then, because I can see your background, and I've got to say, absolutely fantastic. I love it, and I know you spun the camera around a bit earlier for me, but just incredible. So, what is it about gaming then that got you into it so much and got you, I would say, hooked? Because seeing your room now, I would say you're pretty hooked.
Yeah, look, so gaming, distinguishing retro gaming, so things like your Nintendo, your Super Nintendo, your Nintendo 64, PlayStation 1. Again, it was a part of my life growing up as a teenager that my parents weren't around much. They were running restaurants and we had babysitters most of the time. So it was just a way for me to keep myself preoccupied. We didn't get a lot of homework back in those days. And it was a bit of escapism. I didn't have a lot of friends just because we didn't speak English for a long time. My parents moved to Australia in 1984, and I really only spoke English when I was in year 4 or 5. So I had this kind of a lot of sense of alone a lot of the time. I didn't have any siblings until 1990. My sister's 5 years younger. So, you didn't have anything to really connect with her. Look, I think the gaming was huge. And I think it's probably where, like I said, 15, 14, 15, 16, I just started doing that far more than playing toys because, you were in control. There were so many games. I mean, some of these consoles had thousands of titles. And you could just rent them from your video store and then share them with your friends. And back then, I played pinball a lot, but I wasn't heavy into it as I am today. I find that I'm probably into pinball more today than ever because video gaming has become so complex and so deep. Some of these games you've got to spend like hundreds of hours to complete a game. Right? And you've got to push 1 million buttons, right? And when you're 40 years old, you can't push 1 million buttons. You're just too slow, right? So
wait till you're 50.
Yeah, wait. Oh well. I think there's Viagra for that though, isn't there? you know, even back in the day as a young kid, the controllers only had 2 buttons.
Yeah.
Everything was just simpler. Life was just simpler. And with pinball, it's still only 2 buttons, right? It's just left and right flipper. So, and without realizing, and a lot of people even watch this channel probably don't realize that pinball is a game that is deep, because the flashing lights indicate things that you need to do, and there's levels, and there's a story being told. It's not just hit the ball. And the moment you work that out, it opens a dangerous habit, because every game has a theme. Every game has levels, and a lot of these games are so deep that you'll never finish them. You know, unless you're an expert pinball player, you'll never. Like, I've never in any of my games, I've never got to the end. It's near impossible. But every time you turn it on, I could play that today, and tomorrow it's a different experience.
That's incredible. Absolutely incredible. I mean, seeing your room there, it just reminds me of the old-fashioned arcades you used to go to. You know, it just absolutely, or the game rooms. I think it's absolutely fantastic. So you've got 3 games there. How many games do you have in total? And I'm talking about pinball games now, not like little cartridge games.
Yeah. So my transition of toy collecting. So towards the end of last year, we moved house, and the decision had to be made with a lot of my toys. And I was like, well, I don't have the space at the new house to literally show off everything. I can't do it all. So stuff was going to end up in tubs. And then we hired some pinball machines, because there's a guy over here that hires them. And we had a couple at home, and my kids loved them, and I was really enjoying them. So I thought, well, what's the point of this stuff living in tubs when I can just sell them and reinvest that money into some pinball machines?
Yeah.
And it just became so enjoyable that I had made a decision to basically sell a lot of my collection, because I never walked into the room anymore. No one was ever coming over.
This is the collection that you sent in. It showed in the photographs. Yeah.
Yeah. So all the turtle stuff, all my vintage, all my retro gaming, you know, after, 30, 35 years of collecting, I've parted with nearly 3/4 of it in the last 6 months. Because I'm just at a point where I think I went so hard, so fast that I got a bit numb as well.
Yeah.
And I just started seeing the difference the machines made, not only for me, but even my family as well. Because my wife started playing it. My wife, you know, we've been together for 11, 12 years, and we've never played video games together. But the pinballs have brought the family together. We're pretty much in here all the time. So it's either have all these toys that I can only have by myself and share by myself, or pinball machines. And for me, it's a kind of a bit of both, because pinballs are toys, they're video games, and I get to play them. So, you know, it's a 3-way streak.
Yeah.
I've kept a lot of my favorite toys. I've kept my favorite turtles, my favorite wrestling stuff, favorite Transformers, and basically got a little man cave that I will put everything on display and just have a homage to my childhood, because I held on to that stuff for so long that I just got to a point where I walked into the room and I just fell out of love with it a little bit. Because I was always disappointed, because like I was constantly rearranging. It's just an endless battle, and I'm sure everyone's told you the same thing, right? You know, you buy one new Star Wars figure, and you got to shift everything. Right? You buy one new, boxed masked vehicle, and you've got to literally pull 8 boxes down and then move another 10 to fit one. Right. And literally, like my wife will say, every day I was in there rearranging every day. But boxes would arrive, parcels would arrive, rearranging every day. And it was a vicious cycle. And I think probably that's what numbed me a little bit, to be fair. So I decided to rein it in a bit, sell a lot of the stuff that I bought during COVID and all that. That was very, it meant nothing to me. Like, I bought Buck Rogers stuff, and I bought the Mario figures, Bill and Ted. I bought that stuff. It's stuff that I love the genre of it all, but I never had it. I never had it, and it was just like, what am I doing? What am I doing?
Yeah.
I was probably a little bit irresponsible.
It is easy to do, isn't it? It is easy to do. I mean, I'm like you. I mean, I predominantly just when I started collecting was vintage Star Wars, and then like 2020 hit, and then world went to shit, and so I was like watching all these YouTubers and stuff like that because I heard something about a sail barge and something like that, and I thought, you know what, it'd be interesting to just see this, and I end up watching people like Tim from Bosk's Bounty, Nick from Only One Kenobi. They had the sail barges. And I was like, okay. Then I was like starting to look for more people like with figure reviews, and and then the list grows with the people you sort of like sub to and stuff. And it is so easy to just go mad and hell for leather, isn't it? That first instance when you start collecting, it's like, I must have this, I must have this, I must have this. In hindsight, I wish I hadn't have done that and collected the original 96 Star Wars figures from Kenner, because I mean the prices now, they've just shot up. But listen, yeah, I'm happy with the bits and bobs I've got. Obviously, a lot of my stuff's in tubs, but hopefully one day.
I think one of the things for me is probably being isolated. It's very different for like Scott Crusher and Andrew and all them because they all live near each other. Melbourne, Sydney, they're really close. They all have each other. And I was always a bit jealous of that because I think if you're out there and you're constantly hanging out with toy collectors and you're in each other's rooms and you're going to Toy Fest together, that's probably more enjoyable. And I was pretty alone. I had one friend here, or two friends here in Perth that do toy collect, but we live so far from each other. Because in Perth, I live one area, but everyone else might live because we're so. I mean, if you Google Western Australia on the map, you will see how big it is. Yeah. And there's one city which is here, right?
Yeah.
And it's pretty much the whole window. And like my friends live half an hour away from me, and when you've only got an hour or two spare on the weekend, half an hour there, half an hour back, so I think doing it alone in a sense and being alone a lot in the room is what probably killed it for me. As opposed to with the pinballs, I was not alone anymore because my kids were in here all the time. My wife was in here all the time when the kids would go to bed. So the room was far more used when I started moving some of the toys out and bringing in some pinball machines. But yes, I have a lot of pinball machines now because that addiction, like I said, my compulsive personality is a bit addictive. So I've got over 15 machines now.
That's incredible. It's just absolutely incredible. Wow.
Yeah, and between them, and then look, people go, but you don't have room for toys, but you got room for pinball machines. It's different because with pinball machines, you line them up, that's it, right? With toys, we're just trying to fill every meter, every corner, cornice. Can I put a shelf there? Can I hang something from the ceiling? Your limit with pinball. That's it. You can't stack them on top of each other. You can't put one underneath it. There's a lot of wasted space under a pinball machine and above a pinball machine. It's. I'm not going to say that I'm not collecting anymore because there are things that I see that I want to get and I want to buy. But I have parted ways with a good 80% of what you guys have seen, which is a bit of a newsflash because nobody knows this yet, apart from one person. But it just got to a point where I looked at it and I was been staring at tubs for such a long time again, going, who knows when I'm going to put this stuff back on display? Who knows where we're going to be in 5 years' time? And toy prices, I don't know about you in the UK, but over here have mellowed out completely. Like affordability, the really rare stuff's still expensive, but it's all kind of plateaued a little bit. And I think, if I ever one day decide I want to get back into certain ranges, I can always buy that stuff again. That was the mentality.
Listen. I mean, it's collecting's about personal choice. There's no right way of collecting. There's no wrong way of collecting. It's down to the individual. So, I don't feel that you need to sort of like justify why you've sold everything and gone into pinball. I mean, that is perfectly okay. That's your choice. And I think it looks absolutely fantastic. I really do. And the background, I mean, it's colorful, awesome. And then when you spun your camera around as well and showed us, I just thought that's absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Really and look, it's no different to toy collecting. It's colorful.
No, it's not.
It has nostalgia.
Yeah.
These are very old machines back here. The Demolition Man's 30 years old. Royal Rumble's 30 years old. Getaway is 30 years old. You know, they are prone to probably be a bit problematic and a bit of maintenance is needed. But a lot of my other stuff is I've got Big Lebowski here.
Hang on.
Is,
Let me just there you go.
So the Big Lebowski, that's a relatively new pinball machine. It came out about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
That's a real modern pinball machine based on one of my favorite movies, and it is an extremely amazing game. You know, so the thing is that there are so many, and like I guess, you know, what we do in toy collecting, there's just so many different games and different styles of games and you know, different types. And of course, you want them all. I guess it becomes a bit again.
Well, yeah, a bit difficult for you though, isn't it, with those the size of those? Yeah,
they're big. They do take up a lot of space.
Yeah.
And you know, again, I'm going to look at putting some shelves up, and I can probably fill the room with you know, toys on some shelves and stuff. But I live vicariously through the YouTube community, constantly looking at what everyone's doing and collecting.
Well, I mean, let's get on to the next question. Your YouTube channel. Now, what got you into doing a YouTube channel? And you saying that you know, you're on your own and you kind of like feel like you're on your own because, you know, Scott and everybody else lives like miles and miles away in different towns. Through YouTube, do you feel like that loneliness isn't as bad as what it used to be, kind of thing, or are you still feeling that?
No, not at all. I mean, because now obviously since COVID, traveling and everyone's you know seeing each other again and stuff. Although because we're so far away from each other, like even after COVID, I still haven't been over there to see Scott or Andrew, all those guys, because they're just it's a 5-hour plane ride, and it costs $1,000 to do it, you know, and then. You know, and just life's been so busy after COVID that I just haven't done it, and I don't really like flying, to be honest. So that doesn't help. But look, I feel that during COVID, when I was watching a lot of the channels, and I reached out to Scott, and Scott was actually friends with my friend Ryan here in Perth. So it was I met everyone through YouTube and just commenting and you know getting along with everyone, and then you know talking in the DMs and. Then all of a sudden talking on the phone and it is I've collected a lot of things in my time, you know, between retro gaming, model cars, you know, you name it, Lego. Like I've collected a lot of things, but I have to say that the vintage toy community is the best community ever. There's very little toxicity, negativity. Everyone is so friendly, so helpful, accommodating, and it was one of those things that I think I really needed during COVID. I used to watch a lot of channels religiously. And, you know, and everyone like doesn't have to give you, because I'm sure everyone gets DM'd all the time and they don't need to give you the time of day, but they do. And that's how I started this friendship with Scott and Dean and everyone over in the other side of Australia. And they had this idea of doing, you know, taking this love of turtles that we have, and all four of us doing something together on Scott's channel monthly, doing the mutagens talk. And, you know, it was just 4 guys having a chin wag for an hour and a half, having a beer, talking about your favorite toy line. And not only that, we do it live. So it's doing it with everyone else and reading their comments and getting asked questions and just being part of a community. It's no different to being part of a, you know, joining a soccer club or you know, bowling or going down to the pub on a Sunday. I find it really makes me really happy to jump on and spend time with the guys. And I wish we could do it more than once a month, but it's very hard. Especially with me, I'm very busy with work, and so Scott and so is Dean, and I'd love to actually be able to even see them. You know, I've said to my wife recently that it's ironic that a lot of my friends don't even live in Perth.
Well, I've got to say, we went to Celebration last year in London, and I think what sold it for me was the fact that Scuba Pete was coming over.
Yeah, that was great.
And listen, for me, that whole experience of meeting those two and everybody else, because there's people there that I'd never met before, you know, you speak to them online and stuff like that, but seeing them and interacting with them face to face, it's just and there's going to be a time when it happens with you guys. There really will.
Yeah, look, actually, there was probably a few times where I could have gone easily, and I probably a few times I pulled out just because of the inconvenience having to fly and having little kids and feeling a bit guilty. But there's plenty of opportunities, I think, in the future.
Yeah.
And it's such a genuine group of people. I have so much love for Scott Crusher.
Yeah,
I've
he's
known
a
him a long time now. And Dean and everyone. That it's guys like that and yourself and Luke Reynolds, even Luke Reynolds. I mean, he's a gentleman. I haven't had a lot of dealings with him, but when I do, Luke's just awesome. Scuba Pete is hilarious. I love the videos you guys did and then the talk after and everything. And, I think you sent him some packages back home. Like that stuff is, and it's like, it's just even a little 1 hour chat about what you guys experienced at Star Wars Celebration. It affects an hour of my life where I get to listen to two guys who got to meet finally and have an awesome weekend doing something that they love, right?
Yeah.
And I think, and I can't remember, I always forget this guy's name, and he's going to kill me because I know he watches your channel. Where's he gone? Oh, Real Toy Dude.
Stupid. Oh, Adam Berry.
Yeah. So, a bit of the banter.
Yeah,
a bit of the banter. So where I first met him was when you were doing the 24-hour thing, right?
Yeah.
And I commented in the comments saying that he reminds me of a comedian, right? And I can't remember the comedian. And you read out the comment, and he was like, "I don't look like that comedian." And he was so hell-bent on it because 20 minutes later he brought it up again. And I followed him on Instagram, and we've been talking ever since. He reaches out.
Adam Berry. He's probably one of the nicest guys you'll ever get to meet. He's generous. He's thoughtful. He's such a great guy to be with, and to actually meet him face to face. I mean, we didn't meet him. The thing is with Adam Berry, I only got to know Adam Berry through Tim from Bosk's Bounty, and it was one of his live streams that he did, and it was about an hour chatting, and we just chatted. Not to each other, as in a group. And then the next thing I know, we're standing next to each other at Star Wars Celebration in the queue. And ever since then, we've just got on like a house on fire. He is a top guy. He really is such a nice guy. He now comes up to Sandown and stuff like that. We go to the toy fairs. We've got one later on this month in May. I'm hoping to get back down to Nerd Base and the retro shop, the Retro Toy Hunter that he's got down there as well. So yeah, he's just such a great guy to be with.
He reaches out. He reaches out all the time just to say hello. How you going? He's very genuine, and it's stuff like this that I could never leave the toy collecting community. I may not have a big collection anymore, but it was such a when I really needed, without getting emotional, when I really needed people.
Yeah,
some of the best people that I've ever met were there, right? And so stupid to think that it was like just through a fucking plastic toys.
Listen, it affects us all. Like you said before, nostalgia is a powerful thing. We can all relate to that nostalgia. It's like you said it. You pick a toy up that you had as a kid, as an adult, and it takes you back to that time as being a kid, and when you first got it and the times you had with it. I'm exactly the same. I mean, I don't even have to touch it. I can just sit and look at some of the stuff and think, wow, yeah. I mean, I've got my 5 POA figures there from Star Wars, the original 96 there. And I look back at those and just think, wow, it's just absolutely awesome looking back at those. And then I've got the more modern updated versions, and you can appreciate the advance in articulation and sculpting and the details of them and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a powerful thing, and this community I've noticed, it's just because I've not been doing this long. It's been a couple of years, and the friends that I've made, I see you guys more than what I do actually seeing my friends that I've known for like 10, 12 years. Yeah. But the thing is with that, there's no difference with that, because when I see my friends that I haven't seen, like I've known for 12 years, it's like we only met yesterday. We can pick up and carry on where we left off, so we're busy. We got things to, we got lives to lead. I get that.
Do you think, and here's an interesting question, do you think that I mean, look, in any collection or any hobby, sorry, there's always going to be a bit of negativity and a bit of toxic people. But like I said, in toy collecting is very minimal that I've come across.
Yeah.
But everyone that I have met is so genuine and just so awesome. But do you think it's because it takes a certain person with a genuine soul to collect toys? And most of these people are genuinely nice people. Because, like, I always think to myself, how is it possible that everyone I meet that's a toy collector is so nice?
I think there's two sets of collectors out there. There's two sets of collectors. You get the ones that collect for the love of collecting, and they, they're not interested in selling stuff on or making a profit or making money on it. And
Correct.
yeah, okay, sometimes people might have to sell something on and move something on to collect something else. I get that. That's part of the cycle. But then you get the people that like want to collect just for the sheer hell of making money. You can buy something and then sell it online for like a lot. I think if you're a genuine toy collector, see, again, I don't want to cast aspersions because I don't know these people that just collect for money. I mean, a lot of the people that I know in this community all collect for the love of collecting. They collect
Well, that's
because
I don't socialize. I know a few collectors that collect for money.
Yeah,
I don't socialize with them. I get it. I respect it. I don't agree with it, but it doesn't mean they're a bad person. But
no, absolutely, absolutely.
I just know that there are far more toy collectors that are just genuine people, and it takes a certain person who collects toys. I think you've got to have a big soul and a big heart, and I think that's why everyone I've come across is
what can be better than like what we're doing now, reminiscing about the toys that we had as a kid, remembering the cartoons we watched as a kid that linked to those toys. Just remembering going into toy stores back in the day when they were just like stacked with toys of your favorite toy lines. Yeah, and yeah, do you know what I mean?
That's all gone now. This is
Yeah.
another topic where like toy stores are not like they used to be. A
No,
lot
they're
of them
not.
are smaller. A lot of them don't exist anymore. The packaging on toys is boring. There used to be a dedicated aisle to Transformers. There used to be a dedicated aisle to Ninja Turtles. And the package art, the amount of love and attention that went into just artwork,
absolutely. Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why I started collecting mocks, because I was like, the artwork is phenomenal. Like the artwork on Toxic Avengers, Transformers, Turtles, like it's just phenomenal. But it's just not like that anymore. And they're no different to digital versus physical, right? With gaming, everyone's buying, all the CDs are disappearing, all the DVDs are disappearing because everything's on streaming now. Nintendo Switch. You walk into we have EB Games over here, which is a video game store. They used to be massive. Like they used to be like 3 stores in one. Like they were like 20 meters by 30 meters. Now they're like 5 by 4 meters, and it's very small. Everything like you'd queue up. It was all part of the experience, right? We did everything for the experience. So I would queue up at 6 a.m. for the launch of a new game, and they would have like a party, a sausage sizzle, a barbecue going, music, free giveaways, thousands of people. Sorry, hundreds of people.
It was an event.
It was an event, right? I went to the launch of the PlayStation 5. I was the only one there because I wanted to go into the store like I did as a kid, right?
Yeah.
And I said to the guy, where the hell is everyone? He's like, mate, everyone's just getting it sent home. Picking it up, get direct shipping home. And like we've become so disconnected that experience, everything we do for as an experience has disappeared. It's no different to, I've got a coffee machine here, but every morning I go to the cafe because it's an experience. The girls remember my order. They ask me how I'm going. We chinwag. There's people there that I see every morning. I don't know them. I don't know their name, but you say hello to them. You talk to them because they see you there every morning. Why do idiots pay 5,000? Well, I'm not going to say idiots because just because I don't like something, but why do people pay thousands of dollars to go watch Taylor Swift?
Yeah,
it's the experience, right? Probably a bit of brainwashing as well, but it is the experience. And I feel that's lacking, even with new toy lines. You look at what they do. Sideshow does with like DC toys and Marvel toys. Like they're phenomenal figures, like big 7-inch, 12-inch figures. But there's no stores for them. It's all online, and it comes to your house. And then some of the detailed toys, or are they even toys anymore? They're just statues right now.
I mean, the thing is, for all the good, I mean, look, the modern day brings, like now we've got this internet that we it can enable us to chat, because you wouldn't have been able to do that back in our day. It would have been like a letter and
So
stuff
it's
like
a bit
that.
ironic, isn't it?
So there's some good things coming of it, but I think a lot of the old day values have gone. I for certain would prefer going into my wife Georgie, she showed me a clip on YouTube the other day, and it was a pop-up store in Japan, and it was a Star Wars one, and it was for Hot Toys. It was incredible, absolutely incredible. The figures there, they looked absolutely stunning, and the people were just walking around. We don't have anything like that over here. Why don't they have a Hot Toy store? Why don't they have more toy stores and stuff like that where people can experience it, especially kids? And you get the stuff for the grown-ups and stuff like that, but it does concern me that a lot of children these days won't ever get to experience what we experienced as kids.
Which is,
especially going to a toy store.
That's a really interesting comment, Stu, because you look at what Lego's doing. So Lego's opening these superstores in every city in the world, right?
Yeah.
Like a dedicated Lego store, because they know that, yes, Target or Kmart, or I don't know, what department stores have you got in the UK? Have you got Target?
No.
Okay.
I think our equivalent is Asda.
Yeah. So you can have toys in those stores, but they're not going to have like a lot of them, because they've got to fit a million other toy ranges on the shelves, right? But it always blows my mind that toys are targeted at kids. Kids still exist. Kids still play. Why are there not more dedicated toy stores for certain? Like Lego have hit the nail on the head. They're just opening up dedicated Lego stores. Yes, you can buy their Lego at Toys R Us and Toy World and Kmart and Myer and David Jones and Harrods. You can buy Lego anywhere, right?
Yeah.
I don't need to have a Lego store, but I think experience centers are important. Like, why does Apple do it? Apple doesn't need an Apple store.
Yeah.
Right, but it's an experience center. They call them experience centers, right? So, why has Hasbro not got an experience center? Why has
Listen, I think they should. I mean, look, for all the stick Hasbro get, I mean, they do some good stuff. And when we went to Celebration, they had the concession stand there and whatever. And I'm not kidding you, it was absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. You've got these, glass display cases. You've got everything in there that is set out. I mean, crikey, if I had the room, I'd have those glass cases and put my display in there. It looked fantastic. They were showing the new figures off that they've got, whether it be Black Series or Vintage Collection. Yeah, they should. Then you had across the way, you had Jazzwares that did the micro machines or the micro Galaxy. Oh, just fantastic.
I don't I remember heavily probably in the 2000s, there was a lot of Disney stores in a lot of cities.
Yeah. Well, they've all closed over here now. Yeah, they
closed. Right now, the irony is that Disney has so much money that even if a store doesn't do well, is it going to bother them? Probably not, right? So why have they stopped doing these experience centers?
Well, we've got one Disney store now in London, and that's it. That's the one store in London.
I don't even think there's one in Australia anymore. There used to be. Why is there not like a dedicated Star Wars toy store? They're making Star Wars toys all the time.
Yeah.
This
is $1 million questions. It's just, I mean, I remember back in the UK, we had the Warner Brothers studio store.
Yeah, we did too. We had them in Australia. They disappeared. We had Toys R Us, which was obviously, massive in the US.
They're coming back, but online, aren't they? Some of them.
Yeah, but, why did they fail? People still have kids. Kids still need toys.
I think a friend of ours, she works within the toy company, and she was saying that Toys R Us didn't roll with the times. They didn't upgrade they didn't update their online system and what have you, and their website and stuff like that. So that's predominantly why they went down.
Yeah, but what about the connection of taking kids to a toy store? I mean, people are having kids all the time, right? There are kids going to a toy store. I think the problem is that when you start stripping back those toy stores and you start taking away the merchandise and the colors and the music and the events, that it just becomes a room that you're buying toys.
Yeah.
Obviously, department stores took over because you can buy that same toy in 100 other stores in your city, right? So that was probably a big problem. But, the whole idea of a toy store is taking kids to a toy store. Now, granted, there's the problem that every time you take a kid to a toy store, they always want everything they see. But,
but that's always been the case. That's always been the case.
Right. So, maybe it's competition. I don't know. I don't really buy the whole thing that online their store is a bit old school because, the idea of toy stores is to take kids in. It's for the experience again, right? Like,
well, I mean, look when the big movies come out, that was an event. You had a massive opening. You had a massive aisle. You had like big decorations around it and posters and boards and stuff like that and what have you. It was like an event. You don't get that anymore.
No, funny. I went to the new Ghostbusters recently, and we went to the first night.
Yeah,
and the cinema was empty. Right now, this is for me. I think this is a change where people are just becoming lazy and going, "I'll just wait till it comes." Like, I've got so many subscriptions to so many services.
There's that, but then the cost as well. I mean, it's not cheap taking a family to go and see a film at the pictures these days. It's not cheap.
Yeah, look, I mean, look, a ticket over here is about $25, right? Australian.
Yeah.
It's about what? That's UK. What's that? What
14,
are we?
15 quid.
Yeah, about that. Now, there aren't new movies coming out every week that you have to take a family to go see. But mate, if you don't have like 60 quid to take a family once every 3 months to a movie, there are some bigger problems here. Right?
Yeah.
Like, instead of, no disrespect to a lot of people, but I know a lot of people that smoke and drink like, $200 a week worth. So I think a lot of people, as you rightfully said, and I know we've gone off topic, but as life became more complicated and became more complex, people are working more, everyone's more tired, nobody can be bothered doing anything, and they stay home and drink and eat more and smoke and get lazy.
They do, but then again, like you say, you've got the streaming services, you've got things like Disney Plus, you've got Netflix, you've got Amazon Prime, you've got Paramount Plus. Do you know what I mean? So because now I remember when we used to go to the theatre or the pictures, for it to come out on TV or VHS, you'd have to wait almost a year. Now it's pretty much like it's in the pictures right now. It's on the telly. Do you know what I mean?
And I think that's what's killing it because a lot of people know that in a month's time that movie's going to be on Apple TV, right? So they've done it themselves, and a lot of actors have said this. They've said that they don't agree with the fucking release a week after, or they even promote it that it's at the cinemas for 2 weeks only. Exclusive at the cinemas for 2 weeks only. Well, it's not exclusive then, is it? A lot of these companies do it to themselves. Toy companies of today are exactly the same. These remakes of the Ninja Turtle stuff, right? They went too cheap, and it's not doing as well as what they thought it was going to do because people aren't buying into it. They go, oh, let's rehash a lot of this stuff. Yeah, but the quality and the plastics and the paints are different. It actually feels and looks tacky. They did a really good job with the Mutant Mayhem figures for the new Ninja Turtle film. And even the box art, they felt like the original. So they've started to, pull their head in a little bit. But a lot of these companies are their own worst enemy. Where Apple's releasing a movie. I mean, look at Jerry Seinfeld's got a new film out tomorrow, which is about the Kellogg's war on Pop-Tarts, right? And it's going straight to Netflix.
Wow.
I
think a lot of today's companies and corporate companies, they want maximum output for minimum input, and it's all about the money. Money makes the world go round, and that's it. It's just pure greed. It's just greed.
Stu, that is a really excellent comment. And the sad part is a lot of these companies and movie studios, and I don't know whether you know this, but a lot of them are shooting films and then shelving them to never release them because it's a tax write-off, right? Like the perfect example was Batgirl, right? Let's take a year of everyone's fucking life, right? Make this film, put it into post-production, and then shelve it for the world to never see it. They have literally said that nobody will ever see that film, right? And that was just a $200 million tax deduction for Warner Brothers.
Mad.
It's all a fail, right? It's a big loss for them.
Yeah.
Now, the fact that companies are doing that never happened. That's never happened before. This is new, right? And it is. It's all greed. It's all about, okay, well, let's make a movie. Because sometimes I look at this, right? And I go, someone's looked at this film, watched it, edited it, sat down with the director and the movie studio, or this new toy. Someone has designed this toy, put it through testing, shown it to the office approved it, and they've released this hunk of shit.
Yeah.
Like, who's sat there and gone, let's release this, right?
It is baffling. It is baffling. And
they go, this is terrible, but you know what? Doesn't matter. It is what it is.
But the thing is, though, who's at fault there? Is it us as consumers and customers for buying it? You know, the only way that we can stop this is by voting with our wallets and not buying this stuff.
But you don't know, though. Like with a film, you don't know that it's terrible. You go watch it, unless you wait for the reviews, and after a couple of weeks...
But then the review, that's someone's opinion.
Right? Although with the toys, unless it's got a clear packaging, you can kind of look at it. And I think this is where they stepped up the game with Mutant Mayhem toys, because it was all clear packaging, right? Yeah. And they've been Playmates got criticised hard because of the re-releases. So, you know, and they started going, okay, we need to. And I know we've gone off topic, but I think it's an interesting conversation because, you know, it is part of our journey, and why the journey was so important to us is because of the experiences we had as a kid, going to buy those toys, opening those toys at Christmas, the packaging, the advertising. I mean, they don't make ads like they used to. I love. No, sometimes I show my kids the Ninja Turtle commercials or the Transformers commercials, or the Mighty Max commercials. You know, the wrestling commercials, like the voiceovers. Like, they don't make commercials like that anymore for toys. Maybe that's the problem.
Well, there is that. There is that. Right, it's gone past the hour, which is totally fine. I've got another 2 questions for you. So, what gives you that toy collecting or gaming buzz?
For me, I think we've hit on it. It's definitely the nostalgia.
Yeah.
The nostalgia and the fact that at that point in time, it just is escapism, and it is just a release of that, the memories, the disconnect, and the fact that it's something that, you know, you could have had the worst day.
Yeah.
Found out someone passed away, found out that you've lost a heap of money, and then you come home, look at that toy, play that game, play that pinball machine, and for that hour, you forget everything.
Absolutely.
Right? But for me, it is a fact that it doesn't matter how old it is, how new it is, there's that connection, like, you know, like Big Lebowski. Okay, that's a brand new pinball machine, but I still play it.
Yeah.
Right? And it still feels like I'm in an arcade in the 90s again. You know, I still pick up a new model or a new DC figure.
Yeah.
And regardless that it's just been released and it's a new Joker figure or new Harlequin figure or whatever, right? But in that split second, it still feels like I was as a kid opening up that figure. So I think that memory nostalgia is a huge part of it for me.
Yeah, I absolutely agreed. I couldn't agree with you more there. Yeah, awesome. Last question. What does your collection mean to you, whether it's your action figure collection or your game collection?
I think they all had a moment in my life where there was positivity, negativity. They were all memories connected in a stream of, you know, growing to, as I turned 40 yesterday, part of that journey and part of that past and history.
Yeah.
That there was a memory connected to everything. Hence why I kind of, you know, the stuff that I bought for no reason, it was very easy for me to sell. There are just so many cherished memories, stuff that connected me to my, you know, growing up with my parents, other friends, other family members, things that I was very close to my grandmother, and things that even my grandmother got me. Just core memories, and again, nostalgia, hitting on that again. The fact that it really reminds you of a simpler time with good times.
Yeah.
It was back then there was just very little bad times. And I think what they mean to me is the fact that it's bringing family together, community together, and it's just a deep sense of it's just love, right? Like it's just there's so many memories and so much connection to those stuff that some people will criticize and go, well, how did you manage to sell some of that stuff? And I was like, well, yeah, look, I think sometimes just because you sell stuff doesn't mean that you're out of love with it. I think it's just one chapter closes, another one opens.
Well, absolutely. Like I said, it's about collecting, isn't it? There's no right way of collecting. There's no wrong way of collecting. What you've sold off is gone into what you've got now.
Yeah, but I think does that answer your question? Because I kind of started going into a deep thought. And
no. Honestly, I've loved this conversation. It has been deep. It's been meaningful. It's just been absolutely awesome, mate. And really, really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you. Unfortunately, that has come to the end of the conversation. I've got one last question for you. Where can people find you on social media?
Look, I'm obviously RetroOzGamer on Instagram. And I don't have my own dedicated YouTube channel. But I do. I'm the little fish that feeds off Scott Crusher's YouTube channel. So I'll plug Scott Crusher's YouTube channel because we do the Mutagen talk once a month on Scott's channel and or on Dean's channel. I'm sure that we'll see Dean. Dean was on your channel, I think. Was it the other
last week? Last week. Well, what I'll do is I will plug Scott Crusher's channel and Dean's channel again, and I will put your Instagram details in the description below. I've got to say, like I said, this has been probably one of the deepest conversations I've had on this series. I've absolutely loved it. It's been absolutely fantastic. I just want to say a massive thank you for you taking time out to be part of this. Thank you so much, man. It means a lot.
I appreciate it. If anyone's got any comments, I always try and get into the comments, and whether they're positive comments or negative comments, I'll always respond. But definitely enjoyed it, and I appreciate it. And I love the channel because, again, it's a different take on what everyone else is doing. And I think these chin wags, even though sometimes an hour is a long time, I think they're important, and it just makes you realize what goes on in those people's lives.
It's funny you say that about an hour. I sometimes feel an hour is not long enough. But then again, it's about, are people going to be able to sit for an hour and listen to?
Well, it's an interesting thing because the boys said this about the mutagens is 1.5 hours too long. And I was like, well, look, like even with me, I don't sit ever, even my favorite YouTube channels, and watch them in one sit down, whether they're half an hour or an hour and a half. It is something that I listen to in the car, unless they're showing a review of something and I need to look at it, or I listen to it at work. So I might come, like Dean's video you did with Dean, I've watched it. It took me probably 2 days to get through it. But because I don't have an hour and a half to sit there. But it doesn't mean that I'm not going to watch it, And I think sometimes the hour and a half episodes are not a bad thing because going into them that they're a long conversation. And they have their purpose. And when I'm driving for half an hour, I want to listen to one of them, and then I'll listen to the other half on the way back,
Cool.
So
awesome.
no, I think there's merit for them. I'm sure they don't get all the views, but I don't think they're there for that. Really.
Well, look, listen, YouTube's a funny old game. It really is. And but I'm doing it because I just love listening to people like yourself. I love listening to your story because all us collectors, we've got a story of like why we started collecting, how we got into collecting, the passion behind it, the enthusiasm behind it. I just love all that stuff. I love seeing the different displays, the different collections. We don't all collect the same stuff, but it's good because everybody's different, and then that's what I love about this series, And hopefully we've got a few more up the sleeve. So hopefully we'll get some more episodes out. Anyhow,
thank you.
No, thank you, man. It's been absolutely awesome. Thank you so much. This has been RetroOzGamer. You've been an absolute star. For those of you who've stayed to the end, always very much appreciated. Thank you so much. Take care, stay safe, and we shall see you in the next video. Bye for now.